Today's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast is unashamedly about becoming rich and getting more money. Now, of course, I've often said that money is important in those areas where it's important and not at all important in other parts of your life. But still, any problem that money can solve isn't really a problem, is it? So please let me show you how you can obtain more money. We're first of all going to explain why property investors develop financial freedom. In my mindset moment, I'm going to share with you some of the money habits of the rich, and then I'm going to share with you the steps you've got to take to develop financial freedom, because it's a process. Oh, by the way, it takes time, no get-rich-quick schemes here, but if you're patient and you follow a proven strategy, money doesn't discriminate. You can have as much of it as you want. So welcome to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's most trusted property commentator who has once again been voted Australia's leading property investment advisor. That's the fifth time he's won a similar award in the last 7 years.
We dream of it, we work for it, and sometimes we even plan for it. But can the average Australian really develop financial independence? And the simple answer is yes, because if others have achieved it, so can you. Now, I'll let you into a little secret. Wealthy people don't do different things. They just do things in a different way, from the way they think to the actions they take. This means you can also become wealthy by doing what they do and thinking how they think. For example, not everyone works hard for their money. That's because the rich earn what's called recurring passive income. Being a property investor or being a business owner is like owning a proverbial money tree. You control something that makes money for you without the need to even be there. Look, if you really, really want to become rich, you're never going to be able to do that unless you make money in your sleep. In my Rich Habits, Poor Habits book that I've written with Tom Corley, we explain how the rich differ from the poor, and it's not just because they have more money. The main difference is how they think about and how they interact with money. And when it comes to making money, we can all be placed in one of four categories, we've realised. Number one, that's the employee. Now, employees have a job. Employees trade hours for dollars. However, what they really get are the leftovers. That's after the government's taken its fair share of taxes. Now, so what, you may say, everybody has to do that. Well, that's actually not true. They don't. Business owners and investors only pay tax on what's left after they pay the bills related to their business. Wouldn't it be nice to only have to pay tax on what you don't spend? Okay, so we're talking about the four categories people fall into. One is employees. Number two is the self-employed, and they own a job. So while employees have a job, the self-employed own a job. Because self-employed and professional, they often want to become their own boss. They're prepared to work hard, but often what they've done is swap one boss for hundreds of bosses, and they're called customers or clients or patients. So in reality, self-employed people, they're not really business owners because they're still working for their money. But they're somewhat better off than employed people because they're able to take advantage of tax deductions that allow them to pay for their business expenses before being taxed on what's left over. Now, the third group of people are business owners, and they own a system and they have people working for them. A true business owner not only doesn't have to work, he doesn't have to be at work. Well, not every day anyway, because he's got systems and people doing what they've got to do for him. And sometimes they've got supervisors to manage those people. So a true business owner asks, why do it yourself when you can employ somebody to do it for you? So after initially investing in a business idea and a business system, they let the money they have invested, which is now in the form of a business, work for them. So now we're working through the four groups of people you'd fit into, either an employee who's got a job, self-employed who owns a job, a business owner who's got systems and people working for them, or an investor, and this is where your money works for you. Successful investors don't have to work either, once they get to a particular level, because their money does work for them. And if you hope to become rich at some point, you're either going to have to be a business owner or an investor and convert your money to wealth. Obviously, you're not going to be able to jump from being an employee to a full-time investor overnight, but you can start taking the steps to move from being an employee or self-employed by building your own property investment portfolio. Done correctly, income-earning residential real estate could be your vehicle to getting out of the rat race. Now, there's also many legal tax advantages available to investors, and that's one of the reasons the rich keep getting richer. They make millions and legally pay very little tax. That's because they build assets, not income. Asset growth doesn't get taxed unless you sell it, but income does. Imagine you own, let's say a $2 million property investment portfolio that goes up by 7% each year. Well, that means that in the next 12 months, you're going to make around $140,000. And you don't pay any tax on this extra capital growth. By the way, your rent's also going to go up in that period of time, and the extra rent helps your serviceability, and the cycle goes on. So where do you stand? Which category do you fit in? Are you an employee? Are you self-employed? Are you a business owner or an investor? You see, in the past, there's been a slow but steady transfer from employees and self-employed people to business owners and investors. Now, they're all playing the same game, but each group is playing a different set of rules, and their mindsets are poles apart. Employees and self-employed are working harder and harder, trying to build their cash flow, yet many dig themselves deeper and deeper into a hole of consumer debt. In the meantime, business owners and investors slowly build up their asset base. And the employed and self-employed currently seem to be paying more tax, while business owners and investors, sure, they pay their share of tax, but they take advantage of legal, what I call tax loopholes. Logically, if you want to become wealthy, you're going to have to become either a business owner or an investor. It's just too hard to become rich as an employee or self-employed worker. So does that mean you've got to give up your day job? Not necessarily. Many employees have become very successful investors, in particular property investors. So rather than relinquish your job, I suggest you start educating yourself with the aim of becoming a better property investor. Now, initially in your spare time, but then maybe you could eventually do that as a full-time job. Should you become a business owner? Well, I don't know. Look, in Australia, most small businesses fail, many of them in the first 5 years. So in general, I think the opportunity to become rich through successful property investment is much easier for the average person. That's why I recommend you seriously consider making a fortune as an educated, financially fluent real estate investor who treats their property investments like a business. Now, that's very different to the way the average investor treats their properties. In a moment, I'm going to share a bit more about how to become financially successful. In my mindset moment, I'm going to explain to you some of the habits that the rich people have that the poor don't have, things that you can do to help you become richer, and then I'm going to explain to you the stepping stones, the ladder to financial independence. But before I do, I'd like to suggest that if you are serious about getting to the next level in your property investment, and in particular, if you're interested in getting involved in property renovations or development, you join me for my annual 2-day property renovations and development workshop that this year is on October 26th and 27th. Go to realestateworkshop.com.au and you can find out all about it. Look, I'll leave a link in the show notes, but I've been running this workshop. It's a training. It's an intense training since 2003, and it's going to give you an opportunity to spend 2 days with some of the sharpest minds in property in Australia, particularly a team that's currently involved in over 50 property developments, and we've been helping clients with property development since the year 2000. No one's been doing it for as long as that. No one's done as many projects as that. No one does 70 renovations a year like my business partner Greg Hankinson. Why not learn from the best so you can step up to the next level? Check it out, realestateworkshop.com.au. Spend 2 days with us and you're going to get all our internal checklists, our blueprint to property development. People have said to me, Michael, why don't you write a book on property development? I have. It's the manual you're going to get, and it's the only way you're going to get it. It's not available in bookshops, it's not available online. It's the manual you're going to get when you join me on October 26th and 27th at my Property Renovations and Development Workshop. I look forward to catching up with you there.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
In today's Mindset Moment, I want to share with you the money habits that separate the rich from the poor. And in my studies, I found that most adults start with the same amount of money. They just have a different philosophy. Now, sure, some people inherit money, but most of today's millionaires are self-made. So, as I said, most of us start with the same amount of money. But here's the exciting thought. Why not work full-time in your job and part-time on your fortune? See, most people want to get involved in property investment and do it full-time. Doesn't work that way. Definitely not at the beginning. So I'm suggesting you work full-time on your job and have a part-time job working on building your wealth. And what a feeling you're going to have when you can honestly say, I'm working on becoming wealthy. I'm not just working to pay my bills. When you have a wealth plan, when you have a strategy to get to where you want to go, you're going to be so motivated, you're going to have a hard time going to bed at night because you're going to be so excited that you're working to build wealth for your long-term future, for your financial independence. So indulge me for a moment because I'd like to share with you a simple formula for creating wealth. Here's my thoughts on how the money that you earn should be allocated. And it's what I've learned from one of my mentors, Jim Rohn, who taught me the 70-30 rule, that after you pay your fair share of taxes, you've got to learn to live on 70% of your after-tax income. So they're the necessities in life that you've got to spend money on. But then it's really, really important to look at how you allocate that remaining 30%. And I'm going to propose you allocate it in the following way. I think 30% of the 30%, about 10% of your income, should go to charity. In my mind, charity is a way of giving back to the community and helping those who need assistance. I believe contributing about 10% of your after-tax income is a good amount to strive for. Now, I believe it's also something you've got to learn early because it's easy to do when the amounts are small. It's pretty easy to give $10 when you've got $100. It's considerably harder to give $100,000 when you earn $1 million. Oh, you're probably thinking, if I had $1 million, I'd have no trouble giving away $100,000 to charity. I'm not so sure. $100,000 seems like a lot of money. But if you start early to develop the habit before the big money comes your way, you're very likely to continue it on later in life. That's one of the things wealthy people do that the average person doesn't see they do, and they think wealthy people are greedy and don't look after the community. Many of them do. Now, with the balance of that 30%, in other words, 20% of your income, I think you should be allocating it to savings and investing. It's one of the most exciting parts of your wealth plan because it's going to give you peace of mind knowing that you're preparing for the winters of your life. So that's one of the big differences between the rich and the poor. Poor people spend their money and save what's left, while rich people save their money and spend what's left. If you think about it, go back, 20 years, and two people earn the same amount of money every month, and they've earned the same pay increases over the years. But if one of them had the philosophy of spending all the money and saving what's left, and the other had the philosophy of saving first and investing that money and spending what's left, imagine the difference between those two people today. Today, if you knew both of those, you'd call one poor and you'd call the other wealthy, wouldn't you? So, remember, spend 70% of what you earn on your day-to-day living, what you keep after tax on your day-to-day living, 10% to charity, and the balance you save. And when you've got sufficient savings, then you start investing it in growth assets so that over time you're then going to use the magic of compounding and leverage and time. Day by day, week by week, the results are hardly noticeable. But in 5 years' time, the differences are going to be pronounced. And at the end of 10 years, the difference is going to be dramatic. So, as I said, the rich and the poor all start with the same amount of money. They just have a different philosophy. You probably know by now that this podcast is aimed at helping you become more financially independent, and in particular through property. In fact, many Australians are involved in property investment. They're hoping to become financially free. They're hoping to get out of the rat race one day. Unfortunately, most don't. So what I'm showing you, what I'm explaining to you in these podcasts is different from what many other people tell you. But in fact, you're going to have to do things differently to what other people do. Otherwise, you're going to get the same results as them, aren't you? So if you're taking this financial journey, you're probably going to fit into one of 5 levels of wealth. I've recognized those in the past and written about them in my books. So I'd like you to work out where you sit in the 5 levels of wealth. And level 0 in Australia is financial instability. Since most people in Australia and in all the other countries that are listening to this podcast, and I know it's listened to all around the world, most people are living from paycheck to paycheck. They're what I call financially unstable. If they lose their job, or if they have an emergency, they've got an illness, the car breaks down, they've got no money reserves to cope. How can they handle the unexpected burdens that life dishes out if they've got no spare financial capacity? Often the only way out for them is to borrow more, to get further in debt, and this only creates more financial hardship. So level 0 of wealth is financial instability. Now, I don't know your personal situation, but let's see where you fit on the hierarchy. Level 1 is what I call financial stability. To achieve this, which is really the most basic level of financial independence. It's really basic. You've got to have accumulated sufficient liquid assets, either savings or money in a line of credit or an offset account, to cover your current living expenses for a minimum of 6 months. You'd also have to have private medical insurance and some life insurance to protect you and your family's lifestyle if something goes wrong. And unfortunately, I've seen that so often over the last little while, people who've had unexpected illnesses that have taken them out of the workforce. Worse still, a couple have died. So you really do need to have a level of insurance. When you attain financial stability, which is this level that I'm talking about, level 1, you've got the comfort of knowing that if something unexpected challenges you, comes your way, affects your family's lifestyle, it probably won't be badly compromised. You'll have adequate time to look for new sources of income to put you back on track. Level 0 then is financial instability, level 1 is financial stability, and level 2 in the wealth pyramid is financial security. Now, if you've accumulated sufficient assets, maybe it's a substantial property portfolio, maybe it's a big share portfolio, to generate enough passive income to cover your most basic needs. And these would be things like your home mortgage, home-related expenses, all your tax payments, your car expenses, groceries, living expenses, and your insurance premiums. When you reach this level, level 2, financial security, you can stop working and maintain a simple, really a basic lifestyle. Smart property investors can easily achieve this by growing a property portfolio that's going to bring them in constant recurring income. Level 3 on these 5 levels of wealth is financial freedom. Now, you're only financially free when you've accumulated sufficient assets to generate enough passive income to pay for the lifestyle you desire, not your current lifestyle, but the lifestyle you desire, and all your expenses without ever having to work again. You're a successful investor, which doesn't mean you're not going to work again. I am. I'm still enjoying it. I'm enjoying putting these podcasts together. I'm enjoying sitting with clients. I'm enjoying growing my business. But I can choose whether you want to keep working or not. And level 4, the 5th level of the 5 levels of wealth. Remember, level 0 is financial instability, level 1, financial stability, level 2, financial security, 3, financial freedom, and now for level 4 is financial abundance. And a small group of sophisticated property investors achieve financial abundance. And that's when their property portfolio works over time. They're free of financial pressures and they've got so much surplus income that after paying for their lifestyle, after paying for all their expenses and contributions to the community, and they often do charity work, they often give substantial donations, their asset base continues to grow. It keeps feeding. So how are you going to climb up this investment ladder? I'm going to now suggest 4 steps you can take, because now that you understand where you are, I bet you're wanting to get higher up. So, number 1, decide to become wealthy. I know most people dream of financial independence. Most people want to become wealthy, but they're not committed to doing it. So if you don't truly commit, life's going to get in the way. You're going to get sidetracked. So choose a date when you're going to become financially free, then put it in writing and make a firm promise to yourself and your family. But you've also got to tell others. When you let other people know, you've got no excuses. Step 2 to become more financially independent. Invest in your financial education. If you're a beginning investor, focus on increasing your financial education. To fast-track your success, read books, listen to podcasts, go to seminars, watch the right sort of videos, but be really, really careful who you listen to. Because if you listen to what most people listen to, if you follow the people most people follow, you're never going to get to financial abundance, because that's not what they're aiming at. Your teachers, your mentors have to be a couple of steps above you. Now, for those of you who are more experienced investors, your priority is to actively grow your asset base sufficiently to allow you to become financially free. 3rd step, don't wait till you know it all to get started, because if you do, you're never going to take that first step. One of the things I learned early in the piece was the paradox of knowledge. The more you learn, the more you realise you don't know. Many people say, look, if I knew it all, I'd be safe. It doesn't work that way. As you learn new information, you're going to uncover a whole lot of things you didn't even know that you didn't know. There'll always be more to learn. So how do you know you know enough to start investing? It's when you've got the courage and the conviction to take action, knowing that you're never going to know it all, but you're going to learn more along the way, educating yourself as you move up the investment ladder. And the 4th step, trick, shortcut to get up the ladder of financial freedom is to surround yourself with like-minded people. Look, there's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. Even financially independent investors surround themselves with a smart team of advisors and professionals, as well as other like-minded individuals. So my recommendation to you is get a mentor. Join a group of other people who've got similar aims to you. Have a mastermind group. You probably know I run a mentorship program. Go and have a look. michaelyardney.com.au. michaelyardney.com.au. I've been running it for 12, 13 years now. Over 2,500 people have gone through. It's the only way you're going to get to speak to me one-on-one. If you stop associating with negative people and people that point out all the things that can go wrong, and instead surround yourself with people who are positive, who are going to spur you forward, that's going to help you reach your financial goals quicker. Now, the lovely thing about money is it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care who you are or even what you think or where your parents came from, where you've come from. Each day starts with a clean slate, so you've got the same right, you've got the same opportunity as everyone else to become wealthy. So start making your way up the investment ladder today towards financial freedom. Work your way up to the 5th, the top level of financial security. And I hope I'm going to help you along the way through this podcast. Well, now you know a bit more about how the rich become wealthy. You can get a lot more by subscribing to Property Update, my daily newsletter, where a large group of Australian and overseas experts in success, finance, money, property, tax, and wealth write every day. Go to propertyupdate.com.au and you can subscribe. You can join over 100,000 other subscribers. And if you got some benefit from today, I'd like you to pass the message on to others, because my aim is to educate as many people as possible to help them become financially independent. There's a share button at the bottom of every podcast app, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you like. Please do me a favour. Just tell one person about the podcast. I would really, really appreciate that. And I also really appreciate it when people leave me a review on iTunes or any of their podcast apps. And I'd like to read out too. And if it's your name that I read out today or whenever, and you email me, michael@metropole, metropole.com.au, I'll gift you one of my books as a way of saying thank you. So, the first one came from 81 Kizzer, who said, "This podcast has helped me and my family immensely. It's given us the confidence to buy an investment property and start our journey to financial independence. Thank you, Michael, for sharing your knowledge with us." Well, 81 Kizzer, that makes me so pleased. Really, this is the sort of payment I like to receive when I've heard that I've helped somebody along the way to financial freedom. And there was also a great review left on Apple Podcasts, another 5-star review by M. Richardson 501, who said, "Hi Michael, I just want to thank you for the valuable content you're providing me and the public. I'm becoming more informed weekly and I appreciate what you're doing. I don't know how I can reward you for this education except thanking you. Keep up the great work. Cheers." Well, you have rewarded me by saying thank you. No, the next reward is when you actually take action and do something. So I would like to hear from you when you do. That'd be great. And in the meantime, I'll be back with you again real soon because I bring you this podcast twice a week. In the meantime, spend your time wisely.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?